Hey guys, it's Jenny Silver. Today I wanted to give you an update on the income verification needed for pandemic unemployment claimants who are required to submit verification, proof, documentation for their self-employed income from 2019. I have some additional videos on this topic. So if you open the video description down below, you can view the additional videos, links, resources, so that you can get yourself more up to speed if you need more information that I don't provide in this video. Now, before I go any further, I want to let you guys know I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I do not work for the EDD or the IRS. So you guys, there is no substitute for taking your questions to those professionals. So make sure that if you're in a situation where you need help, you need your questions answered, I'm happy to try to point you in the right direction in the comments. However, you need to be talking to a CPA, an attorney, the EDD with your questions if they are important. Now, you guys, the EDD has begun issuing requests for income documentation for recipients of pandemic unemployment claims who are receiving benefits based on self-employment income. If you claimed self-employment income at time of application, expect that you might receive a request from the EDD to verify your income with supporting documentation that shows your net income. The EDD has released a series of acceptable documents, and in that list, they also specify that what is not acceptable is 1099 documents because those do not show your net income. If you need the list of approved documents, I have linked it down below in the video description for you. Now, you guys, my problem with what the EDD has been releasing is that I feel like they're not providing enough information. So I did my own digging. Now, the EDD has been releasing this notification that you're required to submit documentation in the form of either an email, a UI online message, or a text alert to claimants who need to submit that proof. Now, those claimants are receiving a brief message from the EDD. And in addition to that, the EDD has a page on their website, which I've linked down below, which provides more information on income verification documentation. But what the EDD hasn't done yet is provide more information. And there is more information. So I did more digging. I spent a long time researching this and finding the right publications that had this information. So you guys, just keep in mind that I'm doing my best to try to relay information to you to help you to navigate this process. However, you need to be taking questions to a CPA if you have questions about your specific self-employment income. EDD has provided some information on their website. However, they don't provide all of the documents that I'm going to show you here. Spent a lot of time researching. I read through all of the language of the CARES Act regarding unemployment, and it was really boring. But rather from quote from the CARES Act, because it's a lot lengthier and more confusing, I'm going to quote from the Department of Labor, because the Department of Labor has issued several publications that are based from the CARES Act, basically telling the states how to implement the programs. So it's a little easier to digest and a little easier to read. So what does the Department of Labor say about when someone first applies for PUA and they are approved without requiring any form of other verification? All they required was a self-certification and for you to also state in your application that you understand that the statement you are releasing is true and correct under penalty of perjury. What is the minimum that you must have earned in 2019 net in order to qualify for PUA? No, there are no minimum monetary requirements for an individual to be eligible for PUA. However, base period wages are considered when calculating the individual's weekly benefit award amount. There's no minimum requirement. You still need to have one of the qualifying COVID-related reasons. So if your qualifying COVID-related reason is that you were self-employed and you lost your self-employment and you entered in self-employment earnings into the application, does it have to be taxable self-employment earnings? Or can you be someone who did not file income taxes, only received cash, did everything under the table, and then can you collect as well? The Secretary has determined that in addition to individuals who qualify for benefits under the other criteria described above, an individual who works as an independent contractor with reportable income may also qualify for PUA benefits if he or she is unemployed, partially unemployed, or unable or unavailable to work because of COVID-19 public health emergency. Note there that it says very specifically reportable income. Reportable income would not be anything under the table. This would be reportable income that was given to you and you filed taxes on it. You reported it to the IRS. States are required to do the following to ensure the efficacy and integrity of the self-certification process. They must include information on the self-certification form that the claimant completes, including, separate from actual certification, the acknowledgement that the claimant understands that making the certification is under penalty of perjury, and information that advises the claimant that intentional misrepresentation in self-certifying that he or she falls in one or more of the categories is fraud. So if you did not see it, the EDD did have this statement. So if you aren't an independent contractor with reportable income, if you aren't self-employed with your own business and your business is closed or has partially closed and you have that reportable income, if you don't have one of the other reasons, such as a promise to start a job with a contract that you can show to them, which never came to fruition, you were staying home with a sick family member or with someone in a high-risk situation, or you were home with a dependent who is home from school, or one of the other COVID-related reasons, you did state on the application that you agreed that all statements made there were true and correct. So the Department of Labor states here that you can use the regular unemployment compensation calculation amount to determine how much PUA benefits you'll qualify for in your weekly award amount. They also state that it will not be less than $167. Keep in mind that based on the information that they provided here, you must have income verification proof in order to have your benefit award amount calculated on your actual 2019 net earnings. If you don't have any proof to submit, then you will be bumped down to $167. When an individual is unable to provide a copy of the prior year's income tax return, what other documentation is acceptable to establish monetary entitlement for PUA? Acceptable documentation of wages earned or paid includes, but is not limited to, state agency wage records, paycheck stubs, bank receipts, business records, ledgers, contracts, invoices, and billing statements. Will the state calculate PUA weekly benefit amount when the individual does not provide proof of base period wages within 21 days? So you guys, this applies directly to you if you don't have proof of income. If an individual does not provide proof of income within 21 days, an individual's weekly benefit award will be reduced based on whichever is higher, the record of the wages already on file or the minimum PUA weekly benefit award. An overpayment must be established for any benefits overpaid. They're stating here that if you cannot provide that documentation, that you will go down to $167 a week, not closing out your entire claim. The monetary redetermination applies to all weeks of unemployment that the individual files during the pandemic assistance period. The state must recalculate the weekly benefit award for any weeks previously paid and provide supplemental payment as appropriate. You have to have your benefits recalculated. Yes, it applies to old benefits that have already been paid out, and yes, it applies to new weeks that are to come. So anything that was paid out previously, if you did have a claim but you don't have one now, yes, you have to submit that documentation because that amount is going to be subject to recalculation if needed. Next is the documentation on gross versus net income. Should the state use gross income or net income to calculate the PUA weekly benefit award for a self-employed individual? For purposes of computing the WBA, the state should use net income reported on the tax return for a self-employed individual. So they have to state here self-employment income net, and it must be from a tax return. So many of you have been asking me if the state of California could possibly create some sort of a waiver to override PUA claims needing to pay overpayment. Well, they have that question here as well. May the state apply its own state law waiver provisions to PUA overpayments? Their answer is no. Any provision of state law authorizing the waiver of recovery of overpayments is not applicable. So any form of a waiver on this would need to come from the federal government. It would need to be something that is passed perhaps in the next stimulus package. It was present in the HEROES Act, but HEROES Act isn't going to be passed. We're waiting on the next round of negotiations to go through. I'm not sure if the next round of stimulus negotiations is going to contain any sort of overpayment waiver in it. We'll have to see exactly how the language of whatever next stimulus bill unfolds. So you guys, don't shoot the messenger. I'm spending a lot of time researching these things for you guys to try to help navigate it. So make sure that you're using it as a resource and not an end-all be-all. Go read the publications yourself, seek out your own CPA, contact the EDD yourself, and you guys, there is no substitute for taking your questions to those professionals. So make sure that if you're in a situation where you need help, you need your questions answered, to be talking to a CPA, an attorney, the EDD with your questions if they are important.